Hello, everyone, and welcome to an ambush stream. Yes, just on the spur of the moment, off the cuff, decided to do a quick little stream because the video in question is relatively brief and doesn't really make up what I would usually use for a full episode of TED Excellence. But all the same, the title and subject matter caught my attention because, well, for a couple of reasons. One, the subject matter and the title. Secondly, this is a TED Ed talk, TED Educator talk, that as far as I can tell has yet to actually hit YouTube and instead is a brand new thing, or at least advertised by TED Ed. This showed up in my Twitter feed and I was too intrigued to let it go by because I couldn't find it on YouTube. So I thought, ooh, it's kind of an exclusive, sort of, maybe. I don't know when it was made. I don't know if it's new or not. Sometimes TED advertises things that are years old. But either way, I thought I'd take a look. But before I get into whatever this is, who's joining me for this surprise stream? Surprise! Attack Alpaca, Tim. Some call me Tim. Miranda Stone. Spoonie the Rebel, Chicago Mike. Absolutely Degenerate, Ryan R., Chicago Mike. I already said that once, didn't I? I did. Shadowclaw, JMK, and Mike Savage, Blarg. And for anybody else either lurking in the future or yet to arrive, hello. Of course, if you have yet to arrive, then you're probably going to miss me saying hello. But anyway, who cares about logic right now? Yeah, so this one is called 4 Ways to Have Healthy Conversations About Race. And I already made a snarky comment on YouTube just on the basis of the title. Sorry, on YouTube, on Twitter. Because when I saw the Twitter alert, I said to myself, well, how about this? And this is quoting me here. Well, I should say, I don't have it in front of me. So how this works. Sorry, I'm a little frazzled right now. This is all off the cuff. So TED-Ed advertised this talk with a little graphic that has a quote that apparently we'll be listening to at some point in the course of the conversation, where our speaker says, and spoiler alert, quote, "If we teach children to be comfortable talking about race from the beginning, they will likely have fewer falls and missteps, less baggage, less to unlearn, and biased ideas will be less likely to take hold," unquote. To which I responded, and just go with me on this, what if we classify race as an irrelevancy in assessing one another, no more weighted than eye color or hair color, and move on with our lives, taking each other on as individuals? Crazy notion, I know. But that was my initial reaction on Twitter. But let's find out what we see in the fullness of the presentation. I have, as an executive decision, chosen bingo card A for the sake of this talk. It's only an 8 minutes, some odd few seconds talk, so it's not very long. So get your bingo cards ready. Links are in the description. And with that, let's just jump into it. Oh, Judaphine, hello. Anybody else I missed? I don't think so. All right, I understand. Yeah, this is no warning, ambush stream, either way. All right, I'll start off with a few seconds for a sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it, and then we will proceed.
My name is Africa Afeni.
My name is Africa Afeni. All right, you guys hear that okay? Let me know in the chat real quick. Stretch. Oh, I'm done with work for the day. I was kind of like, what am I going to do with my afternoon? And then I saw this and I thought, oh, why not? Why not? Miranda Stone, a little louder than you. Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Well, is it like annoyingly loud or should I turn it down? I was leaning away from the microphone. Maybe that's my problem. All right. Well, at least you can hear it. So her name is Africa Afeni.
Africa, spelled with a K, and Afeni after Afeni Shakur, member of the Black Panther Party and mother of Tupac Shakur.
Oh, okay. What are the odds that between Sunday's stream and now we'd have the Black Panther Party coming up in two completely different contexts? Okay. Africa with a K. All right. Well, I'm scribe with a C. Does that mean anything?
As you might imagine, I grew up talking about race with my family.
I didn't imagine anything. Okay, well, that makes it quick. Mind reading assumes motives. Putting that up on the board. So circling that one and circling free space for the heck of it. Let's go over the bingo card real quick just to refresh ourselves. Collectivizes own demographic, systemic and or institutional, sales pitch for product or service, childhood or family anecdote. Well, she grew up. Well, wait a second. Maybe she'll talk more specifically about her childhood or family. Diversity, equity, and or inclusion, plays victim, microaggressions or unconscious bias, privilege, contradicts own point or argument, patriarchy, weightless example, wage gap, feminism, marginalized or marginalization, a list. Well, since the title of this is 4 ways to ... I'm assuming a list will be inherent, but we'll wait for it. White supremacy, word salad, self-vilification or wretchedness, argumentative non sequitur, attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase, benevolent condescension, anecdote that probably never happened, and lastly, leaves out vital context. So far on the board, we have free space and mind reading assumes motives. So let's move onward. As you might imagine,
my father built bookshelves in the living room of our Brooklyn apartment.
That's a childhood or family anecdote, so circling that one. Your father built bookshelves.
And my parents filled those shelves with the books of Black authors whose words we were unfortunately unlikely to encounter outside of our home.
Okay, well, fine.
I have Alex Haley's autograph. Alex Haley, writer of Roots and transcriber of the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Okay, so far you've told us that your name has been adopted from one family of famous people, and now you have an autograph from another famous person. Okay.
As you can see in the picture, Alex Haley referred to me as his little sister.
Yes, you're very special.
Talking and reading with my family about race was commonplace.
That's honestly a sad statement.
And many of the children in my community and students in my schools look just like me.
I doubt they look just like you, unless you are devolving everyone down to a very common denominator.
Even though my parents taught me as much as they could about race, I had not experienced having these conversations with people who were racially different from me.
Racially different. Okay, well, what does racially different equate to in your mind? What is the separator? What's the line of demarcation then? If it's only skin color, I hate to tell you this, it doesn't really say much about a person.
When I went away to a predominantly white college, I was not prepared for the emotions that I experienced when having these conversations.
I love how the audience is like nodding along. You weren't prepared for the emotions you experienced. Well, who is responsible for your emotions? And why did you need to have, quote unquote, these conversations?
For example, when another student asked, why do you need a Black History Month? And why isn't there a White History Month? I found myself feeling very frustrated.
Okay. Sounds like a you problem.
Learning to have conversations with people about race across racial difference has been a part of my own deepening learning journey.
What was your answer to that student? What did you say to them? Have you ever heard what Morgan Freeman has to say about Black History Month? There's a great little clip of Morgan Freeman and Mike Wallace from many years ago now, where they're discussing such things. And Morgan Freeman, at least in his philosophy on these subjects, I'm pretty much in line with, but I'll recommend you go look at that yourself.
Though it can be hard, let me encourage you. Having conversations about race is just another hard thing we can learn to do.
I don't want to have hard things to learn to do. Why do we need to talk about race? Why specifically? Thank you, Chicago Mike. 4 ways to ... as opposed to 50 ways to leave your lover, or 10 things I hate about you, or 50 days of or 100 days. Was it 100 days of summer? Was it 100 days of summer, something like that? Or I don't know, 50 Shades of Gray. I don't know. Thank you, Chicago Mike. All right. Yeah. I hope she gets to the why. What is the utility of talking about race, having conversations about race?
It's just another hard thing we can learn to do.
Uh-huh.
I know this because I'm an educator.
Oh, well, this is a TED Ed talk, so I guess that was to be expected.
I have been for over 20 years. I've supported teachers and students around the country to teach and learn in ways that honor the dignity and worth of all people.
Then why are you delineating people on the basis of race? What does race have to do with someone's dignity?
In this work, it is clear that having conversations about race, particularly with our students, is not a luxury, but a necessity.
Why?
And there's no better place to begin having these conversations than with our students.
Yeah, get them while they're young, I guess. The question remains, why?
It's not that adults can't learn to have healthy conversations about race, but the minds of children are more malleable.
Well, I appreciate her honesty. Right? We can mold young minds to think the way we want them to think. All right, so you're not as much an educator as you are an indoctrinator. Okay, all right. Well, I mean, again, I appreciate the candor, if nothing else.
This is why it's easier to learn to do challenging things like play an instrument, ride a bike, play a sport, or to become fluent in a new language when we're young.
Yes, all of those things have a certain utility to them, a sort of universal skill set. You're talking about indoctrination. You're talking about molding young minds into an ideology of racial distinction one to another. These things are not the same.
If we teach children to be comfortable talking about race from the beginning, they will likely have fewer falls and missteps, less baggage, less to unlearn, and biased ideas will be less likely to take hold.
And that was the quote from the tweet that alerted me to this talk in the first place. And again, I will just repeat for the sake of, well, repeating things. And just go with me on this, what if we classify race as an irrelevancy in assessing one another, no more weighted than eye color or hair color, and move on with our lives, taking each other on as individuals? Will she respond to that notion in some way? Will she counter that in some way? Will she tell us the why of this entire idea?
We can then imagine a future where we can have productive dialogue and discussions across our differences.
Why? Why? Productive dialogues about what? Our melanin count?
Today, I'm going to share with you 4 steps you can take to do challenging things, particularly having conversations about race.
Oh boy, 4 things. All right, circling a list on the board. So getting that taken care of. All right.
Identify your challenge.
Identify your challenge. Identify your challenge. Okay.
Find your support network.
Find your support network. Sorry, I'm just making sure I digest each of these as they come along. Okay. Identify your challenge. Identify your support network, was it?
Prepare and begin.
Prepare and begin. Those are the 4 steps. The 4 steps to having healthy conversations about race. I have to make a strategy before I encounter someone to have this conversation. Okay. I can't wait to learn.
In my work with educators around the country, when we explore what's challenging about having conversations with students about race, they often say things like, I don't have the resources to have these conversations.
Now, I'm waiting for the why. Why do you need to talk about race? Why do you need to elevate something that is a functional irrelevancy in people? one to another, assessing someone's character. Why? But we don't exist in a world where the why is important. It already is necessary because we're told it's necessary. It just is. We don't think too hard about the why. We just have to do it, I guess.
In fact, in EdWeek Research Center's 2020 special report, Big Ideas for Confronting Racism in Education, though 81% of the more than 800 educators surveyed identified as anti-racist educators, only 14% of them said that they had both the training and the resources to have these conversations with students.
80% identified themselves as anti-racist educators, but they don't have the resources. What? Okay. Stipulating or just waving away for a second the whole question of why, what exactly constitutes a necessary set of resources to have a conversation? What does that mean, resources? Like, I am a teacher and I'm standing in front of my class full of students. I have the floor as the educator. I can effectively, at least within guidelines, I suppose, or curriculum, talk about whatever I choose to talk about for that day. What is stopping me as an educator in modern day America from having, quote unquote, these conversations? What is preventing me with the forum that is placed before me as an educator from having these conversations? Or are they just making up excuses for not? I guess is the question.
Though this statistic holds true, there are several organizations that provide free instructional resources that support lessons and dialogue with students about race.
Oh, I need like a lesson plan. I need what, pre-prepared questions? Is that what that means? I can't just, I don't know, off the cuff have a conversation about my... Oh, wait a second. What am I talking about? It's not an educator's place to start spouting off personal beliefs to a classroom. We're here to educate, right? Not indoctrinate. I need resources. I need resources from some other organization that knows how to talk about these things, because otherwise I'd risk, promoting social ideology rather than education and academia in my class. Ay, caramba.
So access to instructional resources isn't the true challenge.
Oh, it isn't? Oh, so they're all lying then? Okay. Well, I mean, they could be. They could be trying to avoid it. Saying that they're anti-racist, but not actually demonstrating that through their own actions. Yeah, I could see that, all things considered.
If we're honest with ourselves, it's easier to identify external factors as challenges than it is for us to accept responsibility to influence what is within our locus of control.
What? Okay, word salad. Word salad. Circle in that one. What? What?
When I go deeper with educators, they share that the underlying challenge is actually fear.
I can only imagine why bringing up race in a school would be a reason to be fearful if I was like trying to maintain my career. Given several federal and state laws and certain, I don't know, zeitgeist around education right now when talking about race. Also, why do we have to talk about race?
They're afraid of saying the wrong thing.
Yeah. Can you imagine why that might be?
Or doing harm when talking with students about race.
Or having a student go home, mention that their teacher brought up race, and then their parents, either sincerely or for their own personal benefit, making a deal out of it and suing the school district. Because we've never seen that before either, have we?
This is understandable, especially considering the history and current manifestations of substantial racial harm in this country.
Well, okay. I mean, that's arguable in the way that you framed it, but yes, all right. So you understand the fear. Okay, well, how do you convince an educator to move past that legitimate fear and still have these conversations about race in the classroom?
But when we identify the true challenge, not the school or the lack of resources, but fear is an essential first step.
Okay, so again, how do you help an educator move past the legitimate fear of talking about these things in an educational setting where the perils might lead to either lawsuits or the end of their career?
Once we can name what's at the heart of our challenge, we can begin to overcome it with the next step.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Finding our support network.
Finding your support network. Okay, is the school going to cover you if you happen to infringe on someone else's civil rights or state law or something else in the process of this?
Too often, attempts to begin having conversations with students about race fail because the fear of making mistakes takes over.
And as you said, it's understandable. So
When we try to do this work on our own and we face a challenge, say, for example, a student says something or asks a question that we're not prepared to address or answer, in our minds, we can say things like, ooh, this is uncomfortable. I don't like being uncomfortable.
yes, but we must learn to sit within our discomfort because that's when we really learn things. Right?
I don't think I want to do this anymore.
Okay, well, if someone doesn't want to do something, they can choose not to do it, right?
It's important for us to be surrounded by a community of people who are committed to doing this work.
So it's important to be surrounded by a bunch of like-minded sycophants and true believers so that we don't feel like we're alone in pushing this ideology onto the malleable minds of children. All right.
My colleague, Jenna Chandler Ward, a white woman, and
what does her race have to do with? Oh, wait, that's right. Sorry. I forgot. Race is tantamount to everything we talk about here. Sorry. Okay. Unless you're going to tell us why her race is significant.
Colleague, Jenna Chandler Ward, a white woman and co-founder of Teaching While White, facilitates racial accountability spaces.
Teaching While White, racial accountability spaces. Oh, Lord.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Right?
What happens in a racial accountability space? How am I held accountable for my race? You're kidding me, right? Teaching While White. I might have to look this up for a Sunday stream or something. Let's go back. Let me get my pen out to write that name down. That sounds like something interesting. Okay, sorry. What was her name again?
And co-founder of Teaching While White.
Oh, sorry. I got to back up a little bit more. Pardon me.
Colleague, Jenna Chandler Ward, a white
Jenna Chandler Ward, Teaching While White. Okay. I have made a note. I will look this up after the show and see if I can't find some material on Teaching While White. I'm sure it'll be illuminating.
work. My colleague, Jenna Chandler Ward, a white woman and co-founder of Teaching While White, facilitates racial accountability spaces.
Racial accountability. I just imagine in my mind's eye, I imagine a room where someone has to stand alone, surrounded by other people, and explain to everyone why they are the skin color they are. It doesn't matter what skin color. Just think, racial accountability space. Just think about that concept. Just those words put together for a second. Accounting for your race. How would one exactly do that? I really hope that in this talk she elaborates, or at worst, I can find out what that looks like in some way when I do some research after this show. Thank you, Keldrig. Why do these people always use their full name? It always sounds so pretentious. I mean, It's the lady's name. I don't know. It's the researcher's name, Jenna Chandler. I mean, it sounds like a hyphenated name, Chandler Ward. So I don't know. Full names. Should it be like, just shortened like Prince or maybe just a symbol that represents the person? What exactly are you asking for, Kildrig? All right. Racial accountability spaces.
She regularly hears from white teachers and students that they are afraid to say the wrong thing.
I can imagine if you've been trained to think that race has to be something to be talked about in the first place, and you've seen the perils of having such quote unquote conversations in an educational context, I can see why. Also, when white people are reflexively vilified just for being the skin color they are in accountability spaces, I mean, come on. You have a lady who runs an organization that holds racial accountability spaces, and you think that people attending these things aren't going to be inherently, I don't know, scared about talking about the very thing that makes them villains in the first place, their skin color?
She shares with them that she herself has remained silent to avoid conflict and for fear of making things worse.
What a way to live your life. What a way to live your life. Living in fear all the time about something you cannot change. Something that says nothing about who you are, but other people are apparently assessing you on the basis of. God, what a terrible world that is to live in. Maybe we should work to eliminate that way of thinking about one another.
Jenna says, if we are not intentionally seeking people to hold up a mirror and hold us accountable, we'll end up surrounding ourselves with people who affirm our beliefs instead of challenging us to see something more.
Oh, so race determines beliefs now, does it? The way I look says something about the way I think? Oh, okay. I mean, if you say so.
The more perspectives we have, the broader our understanding will be, especially from people who are at different points of racial identity development.
Oh, right. Okay, so galvanizing the idea that race determines ways of thinking, that racial identitarianism is just a thing that has to be. All right. Yeah, all right. Well, tell me more about how people think and how I can know how they think because I can see the color of their skin.
If we're a part of a group of people who are doing this work together, we have a place to take that discomfort and work through it. It'll help us to remember that we're not alone and help us to feel less isolated.
Oh, so it's one big struggle session, is it? Okay, so we all have to be in some kind of group therapy session to get over our fear of talking about a functional irrelevancy between peoples. Oh, all right. Well.
Once we find our support network, we can prepare to have conversations with students about race.
Right. I have to find my support network amongst like-minded, racially paranoid individuals so I can go talk to the malleable minds of children and convince them the importance of skin color. Anybody else think this sounds just a little bit sinister when you stop and think about it for a second?
When the student I mentioned earlier asked me why there was a Black History Month and not a White History Month,
yes,
I experienced a whole range of emotions.
Yeah, you told us that before.
Confusion.
Confusion, why? It's a child asking a supremely logical question.
Hurt.
Hurt? Hurt is an emotion? Well, I guess if you've got your feelings hurt.
Anger.
Anger at the innocently logical question of a child. Okay?
Similarly, just as I experienced a range of emotions, so will your students and so will you.
Why? You know this to be true? Okay, well, what answer did you give the student?
Expect it so you can be prepared.
Okay, how did you answer the student?
For this work to be sustainable, it is important that we prepare to navigate these conversations in our learning communities.
Okay. How did you answer the student?
We will want to intentionally envision how these conversations will look and feel.
So you want to engage in preemptory conflict fantasies. Okay. I mean, I can't say that I haven't done that myself in the past. You know, like when you've got a beef with somebody or there's somebody in your life that's, you know, you have a problem with, or they have a problem with you, and you're just envisioning the next encounter you're going to have with them. And you sort of like think about ahead of time, what am I going to say or how am I going to say it? Because you don't want to be caught flat footed, right? And you don't want to have one of those situations where you walk away from an encounter 5 minutes later, you go, I should have said that kind of thing. Yeah. That's often not very healthy. And I've engaged in those quite a bit in my past, mainly because it's been fueled by anxiety I don't have any control over half the time. It's not fun. It's not useful. And 9 times out of 10, whatever conflict I'm imagining is going to happen never actually happens. So I've prepared myself with all my best one-liners for nothing. But I guess that's just part and parcel with this theory. Thank you, Devin Knox. I think YouTube is throttling you. Uh-oh. What do you mean? What's happening? Anybody noticing some issues? Is it, am I buffering? Is my sound off? Let me know. I'm checking the chat real quick. I don't see anyone else. Okay, well, am I still coherent? Can you guys hear me? Miranda Stone says no issues. Okay. No RoboScribe. Okay, that was my worry. I'm always, you know, I can't tell the quality of my own broadcast unless you guys tell me so. So I'm just going to assume. But either way, Devin, I appreciate you keeping an eye on it regardless, because those things do happen. All right. Anyway, where were we again? Back up a little bit.
In our learning communities.
Mm-hmm.
We will want to intentionally envision how these conversations will look and feel.
Yeah, conflict fantasies, right.
What emotions might the discussions bring up for our students?
What? I don't know. Did you ask them? Are you a mind reader? How did you answer your student's question? I'm still waiting for that part. I mean, this entire talk is about having conversations, right? So how did the dialogue and interchange between you and your student go when they asked you a question?
What agreements might we need to have in place before we have these discussions?
I don't know. What agreements would you recommend we have in place before we have these discussions?
How will you respond to questions, comments, and resistance?
I've been waiting for that since you mentioned it in the first place. How did you respond to your student? Why would you bring that? Are you going to tell us the conclusion of that exchange before the talk is over? You've only got about a minute and a half left.
How will you repair any harm that may be done?
I don't know. How would I repair any quote unquote harm that could be done?
You'll want to feel comfortable responding in the moment instead of reacting if the discussion doesn't go the way you hoped.
Okay, so student asks you, if there's a Black History Month, why isn't there a White History Month? And your extensive preparation for just this such of an encounter led you to say what in response after you were overwhelmed with emotions, mostly negative?
Once you prepare, you'll be ready to begin.
I don't want to be a broken record, but it's her example. What did you say to that student?
Just as in starting anything new, it can be messy, and you'll make mistakes because you're human.
Am I? Is that the grand unifier? I thought it was race first.
Making mistakes can feel scary, especially because our work is so public.
Yeah, well, when you accept state and federal tax dollars for your pay, it is public. And yeah, you are accountable to powers higher than just your own personal likes and dislikes, supposedly. So, okay.
When we push through that fear, however, we can teach students to have conversations about race and help them to unpack their misperceptions.
How do you know they have misperceptions? why not give them the perception of people as people first and foremost? You're so up on, taking charge of these malleable minds because it's so much more work to try to convince somebody who's of a thinking legal age.
In this work with teachers, it feels like some people are waiting for the perfect moment when a racially conscious version of themselves will appear before they begin engaging in this work.
A racially conscious person. Oh, I cannot wait for the day when I become a racially conscious person. That race is always first and foremost on my mind when I encounter other people. Golly, what a utopia that will be when everybody, one to another, assesses each other on the basis of their skin color before they even have a conversation. Wow. I wonder what we'll call this world. Will it be Selma in the 1950s?
That version of yourself has to be purposely developed and formed, and that moment is now.
Yeah, no, you really would, in this day and age, have to purposefully develop a racially conscious personality. You really would have to make an effort at it. Because it's a choice, a conscious choice.
When we engage in conversations with our students about race,
we don't answer their questions. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead.
We can help to expand their thinking
by not answering their questions
and equip them with the language and tools that they need to see themselves clearly and to recognize and value the histories, perspectives, and experiences of people who are unlike them.
Because obviously histories, experiences, thoughts, opinions, perspectives, and on and on and on are all tied to their skin color. And we can know that ahead of time because of racial identity.
They'll be prepared to help us build and sustain a truly just society.
Truly just society. Predicated on skin color.
Where we all contribute to the well-being of everyone in our human family.
Oh, really? The well-being of everyone? You mean there's no considerations beforehand? No assessment of someone's value or worth or station in society? Oh, I mean, if you say so.
Remember, having conversations about race is just another hard thing we can learn to do, one courageous step at a time. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And you never answered the question of the student. Student asks you a question, you get completely keyed up by negative emotions. I mean, I'm morbidly curious to know what her answer was to that student. It is telling to me that she never finished that anecdote. But anyway, there you go. There's our TEDx mini talk. 8 minutes long. Not a whole lot there, but let's still go over the bingo card just to enlighten ourselves. Oh, wait a second here. I hit the wrong button for the wrong thing. Let's try this. There we go. All right. So the bingo card, as it stands right now, looks kind of like that. I'm going to go over it one more time by myself. Excuse me. If you guys have arguments for squares to be circled, please hold on to them for a moment and we'll get to you. Collectivizes own demographic. I'm trying to think if she ever did actually do that. I don't think so. At least not overtly so. Thank you, Devin Knox. She probably just cussed the kid out. What? That's what I'm wondering. It's like, kid asks you a question. Your immediate response and reaction is to have every possible negative reaction emotion bubble up inside of you. What then are the words that come out of your mouth? I would have loved to know the answer. I'm gonna sit on that one. Systemic, institutional. I mean, talking about schools, and she talked about statistics, and 80% of teachers identify as anti-racist, but only 14% actually do anything about it, that kind of thing. Sales pitch for product or service. She never brought up anything particular, so I don't think so. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Did she say inclusive? Did she use the word inclusive at one point? I think she might have, but I might need a double check on that. Plays victim. She never really talked about herself, save for her childhood and her family having books on a shelf. So I don't think so. Microaggressions, unconscious bias. Well, she talked about bias. She talked about, if you get kids young enough, you can have them avoid bias by instilling bias into them in their malleable minds. That was her phrase, by the way, malleable minds. Privilege. She never used the word. Contradicts own point or argument. Well, if she's trying to get rid of bias, she's doing a lousy job of it by having students focus inordinately on race. So I'm going to circle contradicts own point or argument. If her goal is to eliminate that kind of thinking in kids, you don't get there by fighting fire with fire. Patriarchy, no. Weightless example. I mean, did she really give an example? Not that I can, nothing jumps to mind, but then I might be a little woozy right now. Wage gap, no, she never talked about finances. Feminism, no. Marginalization. Yeah, I mean, when she talked about being in a predominantly white school or whatever, seemed to be implied, even though it had nothing to do with anything. White supremacy. I mean, I already did the predominantly white school thing. I'll tell you what, I'll take back marginalization. Because I think it applies more clearly for white supremacy, which he talks about predominantly white school, etc. Okay, so I'll circle that one instead. Self-vilification or wretchedness. No, I never got that. Argumentative non sequitur. Argumentative non sequitur. No, I mean, everything she talked about had something to do with race, referentially or otherwise. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. No. Benevolent condescension. Benevolent condescension. I don't know. I'll leave that one for now. Anecdote that probably never happened. She didn't really give that many anecdotes, and the one or two that she did, I didn't find sounded too far afield. Leaves out vital context. Yes. What did you say to the student? Over and over again. You brought it up twice, and you never answered the question. And also, more pointedly, why do we need to have conversations about race? What is the utility? Oh, well, it'll dispel them of having any. No. If you don't make it an issue in the first place, why do you need to have conversations about it? All right, I'm going to actually, you know what? Collectivize his own demographic. I mean, in the implication that race determines ways of thinking, or perspectives, or knowledge, or something. Yeah, I'm going to circle that one. Okay, there. There's my pitch at it. If you guys have arguments for squares to be circled, put them in the chat now. Let's see. Anybody else got any arguments? Yvonne Solomon. She didn't vilify herself, but she vilified everyone else. Yeah, more or less. Yep. Yeah, but she wasn't self-deprecating in any particular way, even, in a deadpan fashion. So it doesn't really count. But let's see. Oh, we have a weather report from Bobby Lee Jordan. Hey, all, sudden rain and hail in Texas. I'm the maintenance guy, and one of our rolling doors decided to commit seppuku. Dang. Well, take cover, stay safe, and dry as best you can. Hailing in Texas. I was hailing in Texas. Hailing in Texas. No, I know that's not the song, but Yvonne Solomon plays victim. She emphasized her negative emotions towards the student that asked an innocent question. Oh, yeah. That, Yvonne, you got it. You got it. Very good. You know what? That's a great way to look at it. That's right. Little kid asked an innocent question. She suddenly is angry and hurt. Yep, the hurt. That was it, the hurt. I hurt myself today. I listened to a child. Thank you, Derek LaRue. Just got off work. I'll catch up in a bit. Thanks for the content. Well, thank you, Derek, as always. I say it every time, and I'll say it every time. Thank you so much for your generosity and support. I really, really do appreciate it. I hope what I do lives up to your generosity. Thank you. And hope you had a good day at work, and or if you're off work now, that everything's far more relaxing, because I know how that is. Let's see. What else? Anybody else? Tandemar. California is really pushing for reparations hard. Yeah, that might be a story I'll have to do at some point in the near future. There is some plan being pushed through that would have, what was it, like $800 billion set aside for reparations in California. I'm not quite sure what the gross domestic product of California is, but I have a feeling it's less than $800 billion. I could be mistaken. That's a lot of money. I am very curious to see what the experiment of Californian reparations ends up looking like, because that might be a look into the future of what is being and has been pushed on a federal level for many years now. But we'll see. Let's see. John Miller, would not answering the kid's question be a weightless example? Oh, yeah. You know what? That is also a good point. Boy, am I being reasonable today, or am I just a pushover? Either way, I know it makes a lot of sense. She brought it up twice and never, paid it off. And I got sirens in the background. You guys hear that? Oh, man. Living next to a highway patrol office will do that. All right. Well, yeah, no, good point. Good point. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? Let's see. Oh, Mess says Jack just had an article that $1.2 million per person was approved. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I was making jokes on Twitter about that, where everybody was suddenly saying, or like going all Rachel Dolezal, like, oh, well, I mean, I qualify. I identify as, because it's just a social construct, right? And whatever I identify as has to be respected, right? Yeah, it's amazing. All right, guys. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? We might have just missed the mark on a bingo, but then it was a short talk, very focused talk. So I guess I can't blame it for that. But yeah, I came across this on Twitter. It struck a nerve of curiosity in me, and so I couldn't help myself. It wasn't long enough to justify an entire TEDxcellence. It was only 8 minutes long, and that would have been a relatively short show. Chicago Mike, sales pitch for a book written by, well, you know what? She did promote that organization, Teaching While White. Yeah, I think, yeah, no, I'll given the length of the talk and the number of examples we had available to us. Yeah, you know what? That's not bad. That's true. And I am going to look that up now. I'm going to see if I can't find some literature or a website or an article or maybe even a video talking about it. And maybe that'll make up the next Sunday stream. But that will be on Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. I can't promise that'll be the subject, but you never know. If I can't come up with something else, maybe I'll find something. And also, you can find me here Thursday for an official full-length TEDxcellence at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Also, I just got word today, that within the next week or two, because I still have to firm up a date, will be the next episode of Living on Borrowed Crime, currently scheduled to appear. Matt Orchard and Dave's Lemonade, scheduled in the sense they've agreed to do it when the time comes, but I got to get down that exact date. So sometime either this coming weekend or maybe next weekend. Fingers crossed. I'll let you guys know as things clear up. And Miranda Stone, thank you so much, as always, for your help and support. Thank you for the surprise stream. You're welcome, as much as surprises are surprises these days, but thank you. Appreciate it very much. And by the way, I do have a Discord server. A link is now in the description. If you'd like to join the Discord server, you just have to follow that link to the landing channel. And in the landing channel, which is called Say Hello, all you have to do is say the secret word. And that'll tell me and my moderators that you watched the show to its completion. And today's secret word is malleable. Yes, malleable. The exact condition you want your learners to be in when you're pushing your ideology for great justice and a better world. With that, everyone, thank you so much for joining me for the surprise stream. Hope you have a good rest of your Monday. It's only Monday. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, thank you. Thank you so much for your generosity. I always never have enough words to say to express my appreciation. And with that, everyone, hope you have a good rest of the day. Hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.